Have you ever noticed how some invitations don't feel exciting? They feel exhausting. Your phone lights up, a group chat, a plan for Friday night, and instead of joy, your first thought is, I'd rather stay home. For a long time, I thought that meant something was wrong with me, that I was antisocial, emotionally broken, or just bad at being human. But here's the part no one tells you. Psychology doesn't see this as a flaw at all. In fact, research suggests that having fewer friends, sometimes very few, can be linked to higher intelligence, deeper self-awareness, and an unusually strong filter for authenticity.
Let's start with something that often brings a quiet sense of relief, what psychologists call an intelligence trade-off. A fascinating study published in the British Journal of Psychology by researchers Kanazawa and Lee found that while most people feel happier with frequent social interaction, certain individuals report the opposite. The more they socialize, the more mentally depleted they feel, not because they dislike people, but because their attention naturally gravitates toward long-term goals, abstract thinking, and inner processing. In these cases, the brain treats constant social stimulation less like a reward and more like background noise. So having fewer friends isn't about superiority, arrogance, or emotional coldness. It's often about where your mental energy goes. When your mind is oriented toward depth rather than frequency, excessive socializing can feel like a distraction, not from people, but from purpose.
The second reason is something less visible, but far more exhausting, what I call an authenticity radar.
Some people can move easily between social masks.
They can smile through conversations they don't mean, agree with opinions they don't hold, and maintain relationships built on politeness rather than truth. Others can't. For them, pretending creates cognitive dissonance, the mental strain of acting in ways that contradict how they actually feel. And that strain doesn't stay mental. It becomes emotional fatigue. So they don't avoid people, they avoid the cost of performing a version of themselves that isn't real. This often leads to a quiet rule they may never consciously articulate. I would rather sit in silence than sit in a lie. That doesn't make them better than anyone else. It simply means authenticity demands more energy than most social environments are designed to offer. And in a world optimized for visibility, speed, and constant connection, choosing honesty, even if it costs companionship, can feel isolating, but it is also a form of self-respect.
This brings us to the biology behind solitude, what I like to call the dopamine dilemma. We often assume that everyone gets the same boost from social environments, but neurologically that isn't true. According to personality psychologist Hans Eysenck, people who prefer solitude often have a higher baseline level of cortical arousal. In simple terms, their brains are already quite active, even when they're sitting quietly, doing very little. So when you add loud music, overlapping conversations, and the subtle pressure to perform socially, something different happens. Instead of feeling energized, you become overstimulated. It's like pouring a pot of coffee into a cup that's already full. This isn't a defect, it's a form of sensitivity. It means you don't rely as heavily on external stimulation to feel engaged with life, because your internal mental activity is already rich and intense. Not better, just different.
And that internal activity leads us to the next trait, what researchers describe as deep processing. Psychologist Dr. Elaine Aron's work on sensitivity suggests that some people naturally process experiences, especially social ones, at a much deeper level. When most people have a conversation, they focus primarily on the words being exchanged. When you have a conversation, you're also registering tone, pauses, facial expressions, body language, and the emotional context beneath what's being said. You're not just listening, you're interpreting. Think of it this way. Most social interactions are lightweight in terms of information, but your mind automatically looks for patterns, meaning, and emotional subtext. As a result, social interaction costs you more energy, not because you lack social skills, but because you're extracting more information from the same interaction. This is why small talk can feel unusually draining. It's not that it's meaningless, it's that it doesn't match the depth at which your mind naturally operates. You aren't bad at socializing, you're simply inefficient at superficiality. And that inefficiency isn't a flaw, it's a trade-off.
Finally, there is a trait that society often mistakes for coldness, but is actually a superpower: high autonomy. According to self-determination theory in psychology, autonomy is one of the three basic psychological needs for well-being. Most people rely on social referencing. They look at others to decide how to feel, what to buy, or how to react to a crisis. You are likely what researchers call self-contained. You don't need a committee to make a life decision. You have learned to soothe your own anxiety, entertain your own mind, and validate your own worth. While others are terrified of eating alone at a restaurant because they fear judgment, you see it as a peaceful date with your thoughts. This isn't isolation, it is freedom. You have bypassed the need for constant external validation, which makes you incredibly difficult to manipulate. So, let's reframe your reality one last time. If you look at your phone and see no notifications, do not see it as a void. See it as space. Space for creativity, space for deep thought, and space to wait for connections that actually matter. The psychology is clear. Being alone does not mean you are lonely. Loneliness is the poverty of self. Solitude is the richness of self. You are not failing at the social game, you are simply playing a different game, one where quality beats quantity every single time. You aren't antisocial, you are just pro-authenticity. And trust me, the right people, the ones who speak your language, are out there. They are rare, just like you. And rare things, they take a little longer to find. If this hit home for you, please subscribe. I would genuinely appreciate your support. Thank you for watching.